Hey friends, welcome back to Genuine Life Recovery. I'm Jody Stevens. Today we are diving into a powerful conversation about recovery, resilience, redemption, and also the missing link in today's youth development, particularly young men. My guest today is Thomas J. LaGrave Jr. This is impressive. Thomas is a former Navy SEAL. So, as always happens, I'm sure, with Thomas, I have to stop momentarily and ask him all about that. He's a clinical social worker and one of us fellow travelers in long-term recovery, or as they like to say now, Thomas, he is a person that struggled with addiction, right? Which is so true. And I love that. And his story is one of transformation, and his mission is to help youth, navigate the transition from adolescence to adulthood with strength and purpose, which is hard enough, even when we were kids, but now, woo! So we're going to cover overcoming addiction and rebuilding one's life through Tom's story. We're going to talk about the crisis facing youth today, the power of rites of passage, which I don't know anything about. So I'm excited to hear about that. Thomas, thank you. Did I miss anything?
No, wonderful introduction. Thank you so very much.
Where are you in the world? I love connecting with people all over the place.
I'm in wine country in California, northern Sonoma, California.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So what happened with you during the big fire? I lived in Sacramento for 17 years.
Yeah, 2017, I was chased out of my house. It was the place I had just been renting and had moved from burned down to the ground. So I was lucky in that.
God.
But I also was out of my home for almost 3 weeks. And it was as bad as it was. Others had it far worse. And now in Southern California, they're dealing with the same issues that are just heartbreaking.
I know. Gosh, it's just, I grew up in Alaska. There really wasn't wildfires there that I remember. But then, when these fires started getting so bad in California, it was like the first time I ever thought about, we need to get an escape ladder. We need to it's just stuff that you just, we never thought about, except for earthquakes up there. But,
Yeah.
So Thomas, let's dive into this. I want to hear, so I'm going to kind of make you do the two-part story of your journey to recovery. But as you do that, first of all, thank you for your service. We certainly don't respect our servicemen and women as much as we should at all. And so I'm so grateful for you, but I'm kind of in awe because, we see the movies of Navy SEALs, hire the Navy SEALs to kill the alien, right? Or whatever, not to make light of it. But we think of SEALs as like machines, and achieving the impossible, not sleeping for 10 days while holding your breath. And so I want to hear about a little bit about that, because I know people are fascinated, and then just kind of weave in just your journey to recovery as well. So we can, cover two things, I guess.
That won't be a problem. The
right?
piece that is really the most important thing is that my addiction began at 14. I didn't know it at that time.
Me too. Yeah. That's that age,
It's at now you still to this day, are we looking at addiction or are we looking at experimentation? So
right.
The bottom line was I had my addiction when I went in the military. I brought it with me. I did not find it in the military. So to distinguish that, I had been discharged from my father's house at the age of 18 because I was getting a younger brother high and we got caught.
Oh, yeah.
So being 18, and the important thing is time frame. This is 1979.
Okay,
So
yeah.
at that time, Vietnam was only over by 4 years. 75, I went in 79. And it was at that time, nobody wanted to be in the military. So I pretty much got the door open when I walked into the recruiter because I didn't want to go back home to my father. So to make a long story short, I had no idea what a Navy SEAL was at that time. There was nothing in my background. My family was not a military family.
Right.
In boot camp, in the third week, there's a screening test. You run a little, you swim a little, push-ups, sit-ups. And if you pass it, then you go from boot camp. And at that time, you had to have a rate. In the Navy, there's 160 some odd rates. I was a hospital corpsman. I was a
Okay.
medic. So I went boot camp to A school, which is the Balboa Park in San Diego, and for 10 weeks got educated. And then at the end of the 10 weeks, I went across a bridge to the amphib base where BUDS is located, which is basic underwater demolition SEAL training.
Mm-hmm.
I was class 106. I started in August and I graduated in February 29th, 1980, and was in the most amazing place, looking at from where I came, being thrown out of my father's house to a job that it's, how do you explain that? For a young alpha male, it was all
Yeah.
about, I get to shoot it up, blow it up, jump out of
Right.
airplanes, and well, let's go do this.
Right.
So
I'm the elite dude, Top Gun, got it all going on, and then the party lifestyle's still there,
and with all of us, as far as I think, and it's my opinion, I started out magnificently, and within 9 years, I was discharged for drug use from SEAL Team
Mm.
1. And it
Oh,
was
wow.
catastrophic because
Mm-hmm.
in that time, it was apparent that I was an addict,
Yeah.
alcoholic, and I was unable to quit. And I was not, to ask for help in that time frame was to be discharged for drug use. The military at that time was zero tolerance, so we're not going to accept it. And so in the ninth year, 6 months, I fell asleep because I partied, and 3 days later I woke up. And in the military, that's called unauthorized absence, which was
Mm-hmm.
a discharge offense. And so my military career came crashing down, and I found myself in the civilian world, which I had never been, with a skill set that had no place in the civilian world, and it was horrendous. It sucked.
Wow. My husband was discharged too for alcohol, so he he was in the Navy. So
Yeah,
basically, he likes to say he broke up fights between the Marines and the
yeah, yeah,
Navy guys.
yeah, yeah.
That was like that's the
That's
joke or whatever.
yeah. That's its own little story there.
Right. What the Navy guys and the Marine guys, the whites and anyway. So it's not funny, but it isn't. We have to be able to laugh at the
Now,
silliness
yeah.
now. Exactly. Okay, so how did you get sober? How did all that work? Because I know, you talk about dealing with emotions, and this is huge for me as well, because, my family was very codependent. My brother passed from his alcoholism in 2015, super heartbreaking.
Sorry. Yeah,
Grandfather, alcoholic, uncle, our parents, silent generation. So you've got all this stuff going on. And some of that was like war trauma, even from World War I and II, right? We were taught to survive back then, not
yes,
talk about our feelings, right? Because
no,
in a
no,
way, that can save your life in difficult family situations, but then we grow up and it doesn't work. So at some point along the journey, because I'm sure in the Navy SEALs, they don't tell you to be mindful and talk about your emotions, but it is important. And so you had to kind of first of all get sober and then realize what were the underlying issues. So what was that process like for you?
4 months after discharge, I'm in a 90-day recovery facility. After my discharge, I went home to my father again, and he said, back again, same thing. He said, you're not coming
Wow.
here unless you go address this issue that you had 10 years ago that you still have. Either go get help or get out. And at that
Mm.
point, I was like, okay, there's something wrong. I can't figure it out. And so I went to a recovery facility called Project 90, 90 days and 90 meetings.
Yep.
And in that time frame, I was able to break the physical habit. But now, how do you live life? And that
Right.
was
Hmm.
not, there weren't, there was nothing there for that knowledge.
No.
So I was at about a year in recovery, and I was going to use again. It wasn't working. I did not understand it. I could not feel. The military had shut down the emotions. The drugs had turned off the emotions. And as you know, you do
Oh.
not get sober without emotions.
Yeah. So
So
you had like almost like the double whammy. And then it doesn't sound like your parents or especially your dad was too in touch with his emotions either. So you've kind of just,
yeah,
you've got it all going on.
yeah. Because I think he's the same as your family was.
Yeah.
If you want to cry, I'll give you something to cry about. Children should be seen and not heard. Do as I
Well,
say.
yeah. And for my dad, it was, oh, with my brother, like, why can't, his name was Casey. Why can't Casey just quit? Why can't he just quit
Yeah,
drinking? Why can't he just stop? And then, if I were to recommend anything demonstrative like therapy, oh, it was all, that's all a joke or whatever, so you're just, so we would go around like this for 20 years until finally, he passed away. But yeah, it was just like they, we love you, silent generation, but it's like
yes.
you ask for help, but you don't really want it, right? So you're just like, okay, I can't help you, right? Sorry,
Um,
but anyway, so you're dealing with all of this and you're realizing at some point you've got to process some stuff and figure it out. What was that? What was that like? And what did you uncover?
it was my idea that I go to working with youth that were the age when I started using, that
Mm-hmm.
were, I took a job as an overnight counselor at an adolescent recovery facility. I did not go to help kids. I went for very selfish reasons to help myself.
Mm-hmm.
And what turned out to be that after 4 years was a ride and eye opening in seeing how youth were able to get in touch with their emotions in ways that I was not able to do it, being honest and
Mm-hmm.
open and facing our demons. And it literally, I felt like a fake because I'm telling them, okay, this is what you need to do. And they're doing it, but I'm not. So
You
I
have
get
to
in.
read the book. Sorry to interrupt. I,
No,
I,
no,
I probably say this every episode. It's called Lost in the Shuffle. It's an old book by Robert Subby. Have you read it?
yeah, no, but
Does
I
that
can
make you
relate to
laugh
that.
or what? I
Yeah.
I recommend that to everybody. Oh my gosh, you guys, you gotta read. He's like still getting drunk and he's a drug and alcohol counselor and he's like, oh, my clients
There
have
you,
more sobriety than I do. And I mean, oh my gosh, that guy was funny. But
yes.
I
How
digress.
sad though.
It is,
Yeah.
it is, it's sad, but at you're like, you laugh and then you cry, as you're reading it. So this wasn't in recovery, really, that you uncovered this emotionally. This was in working with youth. And so talk to me about that and just sort of the kind of the intersection of the emotions, trauma, addiction,
Yeah.
and society, what's going on with our youth and especially young men.
So there was one more piece because I
Yeah,
didn't have
sorry.
credentials, I didn't have an education. They weren't going to, I was not going to be given a caseload. So I left the adolescent recovery facility and took a job as a unit director at a Boys and Girls Club. Now, four
Okay.
years adolescent recovery, 4 years Boys and Girls Club. And now I have been given a gift by youth that they came to trust me. They came to look up to me. They came to me in ways that gave me purpose and meaning in my life that I had lost when I was discharged
Mm.
from SEAL Team 1 as a Navy SEAL. And because of that gift, I've now dedicated my life to give back, not to those specific youth, but to youth in general,
Mhm.
adolescents and young adults. I'm looking at 17 to 29 is my, that's where I am best at what I do. And in doing so, the meaning, the purpose guided me back into education because I wasn't going to go back to school. At that time,
Yeah.
I'm 29, 30, school. But what I was finding was youth were coming to me with problems and asking me for help, and I didn't have answers. And that
Mm.
was not acceptable. And so
Yeah.
I swallowed my pride and went back to school. And in the next 10 years, I got the bachelor's, the master's, I am licensed and board certified. And it isn't for, how wonderful I am. It's because I refuse to have a young person bring me something in crisis and not
Yeah.
have the ability to address it in the moment is why I've become what I am.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm. That's amazing. So, from your experience working with youth, military veterans, other people struggling with addiction, what do you see as the biggest societal factors driving addiction, but also just youth confusion and just having trouble transitioning into this world of adulthood, which is, hard enough, especially in our generation, but now it's seems like it's even a lot more difficult with, well, we won't get into politics, but so many things.
But you know what? You really have to kind of bump into it because here's the piece. It's today's world. The adult population is angry, is anxious, is fearful,
Mm,
is not
yeah.
willing to compromise, is not willing to talk. Now, every
Right.
child learns, and no matter how great you think you are in talking to your kids, they're not listening. Kids watch what we do to learn how to do. They don't want to be told, you need to do this or you need to do that.
Right.
That's not how it works. So, right now, we have a generation of youth looking to the adults for answers, as right now, we adults refuse to find them because we won't talk to each other. And
Mm,
that is this circle that's spinning around the drain that's going to draw all of us down into if somebody does not figure out how to compromise and wake up to seeing just how much difficulty young America is in right now with suicide, with,
oh,
with addiction, with anxiety, depression. As a therapist, I have a private practice. I still work with youth, and it
mhm,
is incredibly difficult to figure out how to put the pieces into their life that was so much different, not easier, years ago. And right
mhm.
now, because of the societal effect of all of us doing what we're doing, it right now is leaving our youth just in a really bad place.
So kind of what's an example, you say that it's so many things affecting them today and you're struggling putting the pieces in place. What exactly, like, tell me about those pieces, or you know what I mean? Like, what, obviously just dealing with emotions and talking is missing, right? But
Right.
what are those other pieces that are missing? Is it that too much social media? Is it, just, yeah. Tell me a little more about that. Like, maybe just a case example or something.
Well, let's change the hats. I'm a licensed clinical social worker that does clinical, but
Mhm,
the end two letters is social worker. My last job, I was working with the homeless.
mhm,
Right now in this country, the money, our money is being siphoned in ways that are leaving us without having recovery programs, not having mental health programs, not having, the ability to get a job that pays for a house that lets you live in a way that is not rich, but, in a way that makes you feel as though you're being successful. The
mhm, mm.
money is the key element. I wrote the book behind me.
Yeah,
That's Special Welfare, Social Warfare. If we do
yeah,
not figure out special welfare, if we do not figure out how to create the welfare for all, we're going to social warfare. And it's not that far off. So to answer your question right now, I gave examples in the book so that you could look at it and choose to do something about it or not. But the fact of the matter is, in the book is my explanation as to where the money is right now and how we
mhm,
could do something about it. And that's a different story. I'm sharing with you from a social work perspective, why are we fearful? Why are we anxious? Yes, the money is not there, but why is the money not there? And
mm,
how do you overcome that when nobody wants to talk to each other? Is again what I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to bring up these points and to have a discussion so that others can hear that there is hope out there,
yeah,
but it takes us wanting to have to fix this. And my from my perspective is
mhm,
the adult world, we don't like each other, we don't want to
right,
talk to each other, that's fine, but we all have kids. And
yeah,
if we can get on the same page to start by what is it that we can give our youth, that
yeah,
answer to that question begins to unravel without having to it just hope. If our youth can see hope,
yeah.
they're going to find their own way out of their anxiety, just like we did.
Right. Hope and purpose, right? And you
and
when you were
meaning. You
yeah,
got
when you were working with youth and you found that. So I see what you're talking about is see, I have an MS in addiction counseling, and so I
Yeah,
know all about the politics. And then
I
I
saw
worked at
that.
an opiate treatment center, and it was wonderful, but it was very hard because,
Mhm.
like you said, the people come in, they have Medicare or Medicaid, but a lot of them don't know it. And it's really hard to get them the mental health they need because, if you're addiction counselor, then you're not qualified. And then they need to go to
You
a
got it.
psychiatrist, but then the psychiatrists don't take the insurance. I mean, yeah, it's very they're starting to kind of wake up a little bit and work on, trying to get people, the help that they need through these peer coaches and things like that. So that's been really cool. It's almost like, oh, the answers were in, Al-Anon and AA all along.
Yeah,
It needs to be easier. There needs to, because there's so many people like us willing to help. But
yeah,
and so we'll switch topics. But yeah, so I went through the board and I was like, I'm not dealing with that. I'm just not going to get a license.
yeah.
I don't want to deal with all the politics in the board. But anyway, so yes, there are so many challenges in really getting, but there is so much help out there. So when you're working with these youth, are there some common mental health challenges that you see across the board? I know for me, I turned to alcohol to deal with anxiety because I have had panic attacks and things like that. Is it anxiety, depression, or are there other things that you're seeing?
Let's clarify one piece. When I was in my youth doing drugs, it was called recreational.
Hmm.
Today, because of the fentanyl, it's a
Yeah.
so what once was for those who were not addictive, were just experimenting, who could, take a hit off of a joint, put it down and walk away and do another one next week.
Right.
Those people, they are no longer able to do that because that one hit will kill you.
Yes. Yeah.
So there is this, cloak that
Hmm.
is enveloping all of us with, it all comes back to there are answers out there. This issue is ancient. There, if you really want to find out, you can go back and see where it came from. So there's ways out of it. But as it stands right now, the I'm seeing anxiety in
Hmm.
ways that are just incredibly difficult to treat clinically. Because
Mm.
again, how do you feel about yourself? The internal nexus.
Yeah.
This was what was, as parents, the responsibility of parents is to place that into your youth starting at the very beginning. And then mentors come along, teachers come along, coaches come along. But at the very beginning, that internal nexus of I'm okay, or the key one, do you know that you're loved? My first job, Child Protective Services, I did not realize the horrors of some youth growing up that they
Yeah.
did not experience. And the reason I bring that up is because if you're going to look at that, when you have done everything for your children and you have wonderful children, and inside your house is a wonderful environment, you are
Yeah.
sending your children out to play with the next door neighbor, to the school, to play with the full neighborhood. And in that, no matter what you're doing that's wonderful in your house, you start getting around 13, 14, or 15. That's the developmental
Yeah.
stage where we are, egocentric. I want to figure this out. The world will answer to me. I want to make my parents happy. I want to make them proud. And you get slammed because if you don't have the love part, or you don't have
Yeah.
the internal, you know what? In the
Yeah.
beginning, you don't. At the beginning, you're beginning the process of having, feeling good about yourself.
Hmm.
That comes in time. But the initial introduction begins with how you watched your mother and your father in your house and how they dealt with their
Yeah.
ways of internalizing. You know, did they give up? Did they quit? Did they always, you know? So
Yeah.
again, there's a mouthful. And in
Hmm.
there, I'm hoping somebody can get something for something. But
No.
that's how right now that's the line we just took.
Yeah. Well, and it's true. I mean, almost mimic what your parents do, and if it's good, it's good. If it's dysfunctional, it's like you have to have that awareness to break the
Yes.
pattern. Like, and I love my parents, but when I was young, they would fight really bad and break stuff and throw
Yeah.
stuff, and I noticed before I got sober, like my brother and I, when we would fight at one point, we started throwing stuff and
Yeah.
breaking stuff. And
Yeah.
then my boyfriends, I would throw stuff and break stuff. And I thought, well, it's a good thing there wasn't any physical violence because like I was mimicking it
Yeah.
exactly. And I had to understand what's this rage all about? Like, did I learn it? Like, and it was a lot. I mean, I'm 52 and I'm still figuring out. So it's a lifelong process. But I always
Yes.
like to tell people, look, if you had trauma and stuff like that, the way you're responding is kind of a natural reaction. Like it's you're trying to fix what's broken, right? You're just not doing
Yeah.
it in the way that you should. So, all so get rid of the shame, and then right, it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility concept is how I like to look at it. So young men, boys, you work with them. One of the things you talk about a lot is the rites of passage. I don't know anything about that. I'd love to hear about that. But I'd also like to know what are some of the biggest challenges facing young men today? And then kind of tie that into, you say the rites of passage has been lost in modern society, which is obviously true because I don't know anything about that. So
Right.
talk to me about that.
Yeah. The rite of passage is what over 35 plus years of working, finding what did I have that's no longer here that made a difference for me, that can make a difference
Mm.
today. And when you say rite of passage, actually it's ancient. There
Oh.
are, you know what, you look at when we were, various places on the earth, there was probably what, 10, 12, 15 million human beings, and they were, miles apart. But when we looked back to see how did each of them raise their youth, especially the transition from adolescence
Hmm.
to adulthood, that turned out to be the same exact thing, even though they didn't talk to each other, they didn't know each other. It all came down to the same thing. A mentor guide takes you
Mm.
and doesn't tell you what you need to do to be an adult, walks with you to become
Ah.
an adult, holding you accountable when you do not live up to your
Yeah.
potential. And in that, I created a nonprofit called Honor-Bound Academy. That is the 1 year program. And I chose the ages to be 18, 19, and 20. 17, you're still with your parents, and I can't, I'm not going to override your
Yeah.
parents,
Yeah.
and I can't. 21, you're on your way. And at this point, you know, can't get everybody. So I began with 18, 19, 20 year olds and circled them around with mentors that would be teachers and guides, with a curriculum that took in the education, but also nature. I found
Mm.
that the greatest therapist in the world is nature.
Oh,
Put
I
yourself
hear
out
you.
in it, and you know what? You can fix yourself to a certain degree.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we live, well, we're moving to Bandon, Oregon, which is a little place on the coast, but nature is, I mean, like today we'll go out and look at all the critters and it's wonderful. I mean, God's canvas, and it's so healing, just so healing. Wow. Okay, so
Let me
oh,
jump in with one little piece just to put it out there for you, because the masculine, that woo woo, we men don't need to address our issues of emotions. Here's the way it's a perception. How do you see it? From where I'm looking at it, it is that feelings are to the soul what food is to the body.
yeah.
And if you're a male and you don't think that the therapeutic approach, I don't hold your hand and go back to talk about mommy and daddy.
Right.
I'm looking at how you could live in this world and use the emotions to your advantage.
Mhm.
Fact. If you're angry, underneath it is fear. You want to
Yes.
figure your anger. What are you afraid of? And
Yep.
usually it's two things. You're going to have something taken from you or something denied to you. Once you understand what that is, you don't need to be angry, because now you can do something about it.
Right. And then
Well,
there's the whole serenity where, okay, what can I do about it and what can't I? Right. And
and those are
this was
different.
huge for me, right? Because if you can't change it, but for me, like I had this experience, I'm a Christian believer and all that, and I felt God say, you spend so much time obsessing on
Yeah,
what you can't change, you
yeah,
miss the opportunity to change what you can because I was afraid. I was afraid to make the changes. So drinking gave me the power back. I was doing something about it. Like that was huge for me that it was like that's why we say and the courage to do something because we're so fearful like you said. So like I could just come to you, Thomas, I hate Bob and he's mean to me and I'm just going to obsess about it. Now I'm going to get drunk. And Thomas might say, well, why don't you go talk to Bob? Oh, no, I can't do that. Right. That's like almost the whole cycle. You know what I mean? Like we're afraid, you
yeah.
know?
And that's what I learned from the youth. The kids, see, as adults, my walls are titanium. Created them, and they can withstand. In youth, they're gossamer. You know what? They're fine, and this is the time that you can capture and push them away and make a difference in creating an environment that
Hmm.
supports youth being vulnerable, embracing failure.
Yeah.
Those are all things that are essential to the transition from adolescence to adulthood. And
Yeah.
when you have a mentor adult there, you can handle failure because it's explained to you. And then you're watching
Yes.
that individual overcome their issues, and you see it's not just what he says, it's what he's doing.
Mm.
So that was the
Yeah.
gift the youth gave to me as to why this male embraced the feelings. Now, don't get me wrong, I hate the things. I cannot stand them. I prefer cold calculating. That works
Right.
real well for me if I'm out operating in a world where I'm supposed to be destructive. But if I'm supposed to be in a world of civil individuals,
Yeah.
that don't work.
Right. Yeah. Well, and the other thing too, and I like to say to guys is like, you don't have to like go cry and,
Yeah,
bring up every emotion. Now you can. Like I like to know the whys and wherefores and everything. But not everybody's like that. That's fine. But one of the things that's huge is young people are bailing out. And I saw this graph and it's like the bailout graph where you know, the girl dumps me. Go on my phone or I drink. I bail out. I keep bailing out. And then when the real hard stuff happens, I don't have any tools to be
yeah,
able to handle it. So we got to stop bailing out. And all that means is like what Thomas is saying is just, okay, what's going on? What am I feeling and why? And how can I, process it and move on? Because sometimes processing isn't that big of a deal, right?
yeah,
It's just talking to someone, understanding it, realizing, oh my gosh, I can get to the other side. Because if we know we can get to the other side, right, then we're not going to be suicidal because we know, okay, tomorrow will be different. I got through that other thing. I can get
yeah.
through this too, right? Does that make sense?
But it comes back to the failure piece. The
Yeah.
failure, I sit here a product of my failures. This isn't success, failures. But what did I learn from success? It felt good. What did when I failed, there were reasons that I wasn't smart enough, I wasn't good enough, I wasn't focused enough, I wasn't determined enough. It gave me what I could go do to change it so that I didn't have to. But you were saying bail out or fail. You cannot bail out. You know what? I'll let you bail out for 10 minutes. Go ahead. I'll go in the other room, bail out. But 10 minutes, I'm coming back and you're getting back up now.
Right.
And it
That's
makes the
huge.
difference that way. Because
Absolutely.
if you're not told that bailing out is going to cost you
Oh my
everything that's
gosh.
important to you,
Yeah.
and then when that happens and you've been coddled, the thought of suicide, which between 13 and 23 is catastrophic right now in this country,
Mm.
that no one wants to talk about because we're not saying get up. And not only saying get up, but come on, take my hand. Let's do this again. We'll figure it out. And one of these times you're going to get it. And for you, I'm never going to quit. I'm here. I didn't quit buds, there was a bell in the corner. The easiest thing you do in training is to quit. I didn't quit then, and I am not quitting now on our youth, period.
Fantastic. So kind of give some advice for parents.
Here's the piece with parents. Because the knowledge is that I work well with youth, I forever getting the questions, I'm a horrible parent. What can I do? This is I'm asking one question. The question is, do your children know that they're loved? Do they know you love them? And the parents are all like, yeah, but, and I said, no, 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 no. If your kids know that they're loved,
Yeah.
you pretty much drop them on their head and you're going to be able to still figure it out.
Yeah.
Love.
Yeah.
You know what? This was Child Protective Services, developmental stages. If you miss something in the second or the third, it says you can't go back and get it. You know what? I'm not sure. But if you missed something in that early stage, and if it's love, how do you get relationships? How do you get married? 10 divorced, you got 6 kids by 3 wives. It's, you know what? The bottom line is that the answer right now is for us to look at what is it that we are willing to sacrifice. You asked, what is it that I would say to parents? Right now, parents are magnificent with their children. My children are being taken care of, but my child walks out my door into our world, and it doesn't matter what you taught them. They're going to get consumed. And if we don't figure out how to help our neighborhood, help our city, help our county, help our state, it all starts with what can we do for our kids?
Yeah.
Mom and dad, you do magnificent, but now we got to figure out what we're doing for the next door neighbors without making them feel as though, they're being pointed at. That, at this stage, the fear is overriding so much so that it's, I'm never going to give up, but there's a line out there that I don't want to cross because I sense it's there and I sense it's coming.
Yeah. Well, and the root of love, I mean, that's everything. That's everything. And I know you got your master's degree, and when I was getting mine, there wasn't a section on love. But,
No.
if we look at the Bible, right, love is the greatest power in the universe. Love covers a multitude of sin. Love is salvation. I mean, it's all love. You could go, and I love all the underlying everything. And, I love psychology and true crime and what causes people to be crazy. But, the end result is we all need love, and we need to have authenticity or autonomy, right? Love and autonomy, and kids need both, and they usually oftentimes only get one or the other. But yeah, I mean, love is the, if you were to dig down into all the roots of addiction and everything happening, the first piece, right, is love. How do we love each other? And of course, we're told, from scripture, that's because of what I believe is just, in the end times, we're going to be lovers of money. We're going to be selfish. We're going to be rude and hateful and all these sorts of things, And so those of us like yourself that can love and teach love, I mean, that's huge. And right. And you would probably agree with this for parents, right? If they're coming in saying, I'm a terrible parent, they're probably not. It's like the person that's afraid they're a narcissist. Well, you're probably not. Like I love the commercial with the foster kids where the dad's doing some stupid thing, and it's like, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be there, right?
Yes.
I mean, I like to tell the story of I'm dyslexic, and one of the things, in school, I just had like one teacher say something nice and give me an A and say, oh, wow, she can write. And it changed my whole life. My whole life changed because one teacher was cool. I mean,
isn't that cool?
So it's not like, it's not groundbreaking, but it is. It's love, and it can be really silly and dumb and imperfect, right?
And we've gotten it to the place where don't look for some kind of like E equals MC square.
Oh gosh,
that
I
made
know, right?
Einstein famous because of its simplicity.
And he was dyslexic, by the way.
For an incredibly complex thing, he made it simple, and he made it that way, and was regarded as he was regarded because, in the end, simplicity is what works best for we humans.
Yes.
Simple.
Yeah.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Right. Right. That's why AA and the 12 steps are what they are. Because it's like breaking down our whole life into 12 steps because it's easy, you know? Well, Thomas, this has been awesome. Talk to me about your program, your book, Honor Bound Academy, how people can learn more,
Yep.
and that sort of thing. Mhm.
So the book right here, that's it. And the cool part up there, I worded it and had fun with it, but it's Adolescent to Adulthood, a guidebook.
Nice.
It points out the various things. And here's the thing, the last 10 years, I have attempted to get funding for the program. I
Mhm.
wanted the first 2 years to have one funder so that I could run a program and figure out where the mistakes and the problems are. And I was
Right.
looking for $6,191,000, and nobody wanted to give it to me. So at this stage, I also sensed in the last year that the change in the country has gotten to a place that is really kind of scary. And I wanted to have a vehicle that put me into the light so that I've reached maybe 3,000, 4,000 youth in my career. I
Mhm.
want a whole nation's worth of youth to know I'm here. And
Yeah.
so the program was created, as I said, a 1-year program, 18, 19, 20-year-olds. It's broken down into 3 phases. It's surrounding you with truly honorable individuals. And this is the part that I made sure was at the end of the book. It is not only made for our young men, but I could create it for our young women too. There is an
Oh,
equal
yeah, that would be
way.
fantastic.
You have to do it differently. I have I have my Rolodex for the men that I'm going to use if the funding comes in for the program. If I get the funding for the females, I got a Rolodex of women that have just left me in awe in the past 40 years of my life that I'll bring them in to help me understand and then who to put in place because a girl and a boy are different and
Yes.
what is necessary to make them feel as though their self-esteem is placed in 2 different ways.
Yeah.
And so I've got all that I need to do it with our young ladies and our young men. And that's in the book because I couldn't get it funded. I did not want to leave it. You know, I spent too much money, too much energy, too much thought, and was not going. It didn't find it acceptable that I just because I can't get funding, I got to do something with it. So I
Yeah.
offered it in the book, and if someday somebody sees it and has
Mhm.
the financial wherewithal, knock yourself out. I put all of the information in there for anybody to create it.
Fantastic. Okay, so if you're
Yeah.
watching this, go get Tom's book, and if you're an investor,
Thank you.
invest in that because it is so needed for our young people today. Just people to walk alongside them, take them snowshoeing.
One thing is the Honor Bound Academy is the name of the program. And if you put THE, the honorboundacademy.org, that's my website that has
Okay.
all of my platforms, all of my blogs, my resume, all that you need to know about me and that program. You can go to thehonorboundacademy.org, and my publicist would smack me if I didn't say that right now. So
Yes.
that part has been said, thehonorboundacademy.org. The book is there, Special Welfare, Social Warfare, Adolescence to Adulthood Guidebook. And thank you for your kindness.
Awesome. Thomas J. LaGrave Jr., thank you for sharing your experience, strength, and hope, your program. Thank you for your service. And I just appreciate you taking the time to be here today. It's been fantastic.
Yeah. You've been fantastic too. Thank you.